So we're really excited to have you guys, Adam and Becca, here. You guys are doing a lot. You are making a game, Overland, with a team of 6. You are doing contract work still with a team of 3. You are publishing games like Tunic and Night in the Woods today on Switch.
Yes. Yes. It's out.
Right?
That's my job.
Yeah.
I was like, I do the console stuff.
You
so.
do the stuff. And I really want to get into all that. But first, I would love to get a sense of how you guys started and what sort of led to Cannonball. Like, where did you start and how did you get to creating Cannonball?
Let's see.
We're old. Start
We
there.
got married when we were 26 and 27.
We were 24 and 25.
24 and 25. Close.
Not
It was in
close.
2006.
Yes.
And we got married and bought a house, and I quit my job. And this all happened in 2 different states within 3 weeks of each other.
Yep.
And I wanted to be a freelance game designer guy full-time. And it mostly didn't work for about 3 years.
And I had a real job.
Yes, with healthcare.
Oh, yeah, we're from the States, so I had to
Yeah.
have health care with my job.
And then we started getting a little bit better at doing the freelance thing and started squeezing in some weird little projects and started making some weird little Flash games. And we accidentally made an iPhone game and did some kind of cool contracts. And then about a little after 3 years after quitting the job, accidentally made Cannonball, and that was cool, and I thought I was really good at making games. Turns out that was not true. And then we made a bunch of other weird things for a while, and now 9 years later, we're here and working on a turn-based 3D strategy game, which we are not equipped to produce, and we published Night in the Woods, which everybody loved, even though it's so weird, which I think is amazing. And we're working on another game called Tunic, which is turning out really cool. So yeah, I guess that would be the rough overview.
Yeah,
to
and
some
so
degree.
at the beginning of your career, you did a lot of contract work and a lot of collaborations. Like, you worked with, you helped Feds ship. You did that kind of work. You created Hundreds, another iOS game. You worked on the app for Indie Game the Movie, the first ever movie app on Steam, which was a whole new thing that you just created. And you did and then you did things for like the Hunger Games and other weird stuff.
Old Spice. That
Old
was a weird
Spice.
one.
That was the best.
That one nearly killed Adam, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been trying lots of stuff, and I think for everybody who's trying to break into games, understanding what it's like to be a collaborator and a contractor, I think, is some important things. So I would love to hear your sort of tips and lessons about being a contractor in the game space.
Yeah, I think for us it was tricky at first because when I started doing this, and Becca was still full-time at the day job place where we both used to work, the idea was, I could work for the game industry, but on the side, on my own terms, and I can. I had a rough experience at the day job where I had a lot of autonomy and creative control there for the first year or 2 that I worked there, and then they started kind of taking that away, and I had to do really bad work that I felt bad about doing, and I had kind of I was just like whiny about it. But also had like long-term concerns about like if I spend a bunch of time here working on stuff that I don't want to show anybody because somebody else is making me make it bad, then it's going to be hard to get other work later. So I'm going to quit and I'm going to find my own clients and do my own thing. And we started out with the worst imaginable clients, really deep.
It was like
really
auto-
deep pockets,
Yeah.
but it was an ex.
It was weird auto industry or tire money out of
Yeah,
Michigan.
he
They wanted to make
he
a
had run a
game.
tire factory, and he'd made millions of dollars from his tire factory, and he was going to branch out and make his first video game. And that
it's a pretty good
that was the
story.
first team where I learned that like one reason that people hire contractors sometimes is to just have someone to yell at. And if you don't mind getting yelled at, you could make a lot of money. But we ended up quitting that.
That game
and-
obviously did not
That never shipped.
It never shipped. It did pay for my wedding, though. So thanks, random
Yeah.
tire guy in Michigan.
Yep. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
You didn't have to get yelled at, though.
No.
I yelled at him on the phone, though, so it was good. And then it was like, oh, well, that was weird, and I don't know how we're going to line up another contract like that because they only hired us because they were idiots. I'm not capable of actually doing any of the stuff that they wanted me to do. We need to start smaller. And I was doing a lot of, I wanted to get better at doing artwork. For games, especially pixel art, that was something that I had done when I was a kid, and I was interested in getting better at because maybe then I could make my own games and I wouldn't need help. And I was really inspired by a Japanese indie game that came out in 2005 called Cave Story, which is kind of this melancholy Metroid, which is a whole genre now. A bunch of games came out, this Iconoclast, great melancholy Metroid game. It's like my favorite genre, basically. But it was just this beautiful, evocative pixel art game, and I was like, oh, that seems achievable. I'd been doing a lot of 3D models and FPS modding and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I can do pixel art. I just need to find clients who will pay me so that we're not hemorrhaging money while I learn to do pixel art better. And ended up making a lot of mobile games for like T-Mobile Sidekick phone, which is a thing.
There are these phones probably before
oh,
you were born.
You guys have no idea what this is.
Before they were smartphones.
It's not the side talkie meme phone. It's better than that, but not as good as iPhone.
They were really bad games for these phones.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. The Sidekick had, and I'm not going to go off on a whole tangent about these, but I found some clients who I got not very good pay, but I did get paid and got to work with some cool people and some folks who are still friends who we see at industry events and weddings and stuff, who we met while we were doing that, or while I was doing that, which was cool. But it was becoming increasingly clear that it was not sustainable in terms of there's all these different things. I have notes about contracting in here.
It didn't pay very well. Pixel art gigs, especially 10 years ago.
Yeah, and this is still true. Like if you're a programmer, you can get paid $60 an hour, and if you're an artist, you're gonna probably max out around $30 an hour. And that's still true in the game industry right now. And $30 an hour sounds like really not that bad, especially if you're learning new skills and all that stuff. But as you start to level up and your skill set starts to get pretty good, trying to make $30 an hour work as a freelancer starts to get really, really tricky. And that might sound kind of privileged and crazy or something, because it's not that bad for actual hourly pay, but there's so much overhead to being a freelancer. You constantly you have all this extra time that you don't get paid for, where you're trying to line up the next job, trying to find another client, trying to accommodate the schedule of the client that just came in and can pay you really well because they messed up and everything needs to be done by Friday, but you already committed to this other project. And then just trying to keep up on paperwork and follow up on invoicing. Have you ever tried to get paid by Electronic Arts before? Not as straightforward as it sounds.
It can often
It's
take
a
a
complicated process involving a tremendous number of departments. And so there's all this overhead, and so you'd be like, well, I did all my billable hours, and I turned in my thing, and I got paid my $30 an hour to make pixel art, and I learned a few tricks, and I maybe figured out this artist I look up to, oh, this is why he does a thing, cool. I understand where he's coming from now and why he does that, and I can employ that in my own work. Also, I think I'm making actually more like $9 an hour or something after we take out self-employment tax in the United States and we account for all this overhead that we've been doing and the fact that I was working on this crappy laptop and it just died and now I have to get a new one and all these things kind of fall out and you end up really not making much. And my job before that, I tried to make this work for about 2 years, and my background before that was more in programming. And we started kind of like looking around at friends who were like more like freelance programmers, and we're like, "You make $80 an hour? If we had $80,
yeah." At this point in our lives,
we could buy food if we did that.
We're in our mid-20s.
Even with all the overhead and
Very
having to
in our
replace the
mid-20s,
laptop,
yeah.
and
I was like, I didn't sign up for this.
yeah,
I gave him like 2 years. I'm like, if you can make this work in 2 years, awesome. But like, I was on board for up to a certain point, and I was like, man, you quit a pretty good job that paid pretty well as a programmer, and you're making like half or less as much as you used to, and my background is in PR and marketing. I was like, I taught myself technical writing for the software company. And I was a woman without an engineering background, so they paid me like trash. Because they're like, oh, I don't have to pay this woman who's taught herself how to do technical writing. So like, I wasn't making a technical writer's salary. I was making far, far, far below it. So yeah, it was at a certain point I was just like, Adam, like this is not sustainable. It's like a word you're probably gonna hear a lot from us tonight. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You can't do this anymore. And then like this weird iPhone thing just fell into our